We'll get going, everybody. Please stand for the pledge.
A lot of people are sick.
I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, and welcome on this beautiful day in upstate New York. The roll call, please, Sue.
Mr. Arcuri, Mr. Bova, Mr. Brodsky,
Here.
Mr. Ford,
Yep.
Mr. Coyne,
Here.
Mr. D'Elia,
Here.
Mr. Ford, Mr. Kane, Mr. Karam.
There.
Oh, there he is. Okay. Mr. Mutolo.
Here.
Ms. Cesny. Here.
Here.
And Mr. Wallace.
We got you, Mike. Thank you.
Okay.
You have the draft minutes from our meeting on November 20, 2017. Is there a motion to approve? Second?
Yeah.
Any additions, corrections, deletions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Thank you. The first item on our agenda is a resolution, which I'll just turn right over to Pat, or to Dick, and it's in our booklet under resolutions.
Under agenda item number 4, you have a resolution that basically commences our State Environmental Quality Review Act, or SECRA, process for phases 2, 3, and 4 of the raw water mains. Phase 1 is the pipe bridge and the short section of main up at the treatment plant, and we completed SECRA already for that almost 2 years ago now. What this action does, and as a state or any agency or municipality, we have to undertake it when you're looking at this project of any significance. What this does is forward basic project information on the project scope, location, any sensitive environmental areas, things like that, out to involved and interested agencies. Involved agencies like the DEC, the DOH, Department of Health, DOT in this case, because we're near Route 365, could have an approval or permitting role in the project, so you want them to know about it very early, get their comments. We also take the opportunity to send it to involved agencies. In this case, the Federal Energy Regulating Commission, because our pipes supply turbines at the plant, and also the New York Power Authority. We're not quite sure we're going to make our upper connection near the dam, but they could be involved in the permit. This gives everyone a look at it well before we're into any, preliminary design level. We've done a conceptual design enough to scope the project out. Now, once we issue it to these agencies, they have 30 days to comment on both any additional information they want to see and the fact that the authority is proposing to undertake itself in the role of lead agency. You'll make the decision, the board, and again by resolution, on the level of impacts of the project, but only after we've evaluated all the comments from the various agencies. So probably not January, but certainly by February you could see it back before the board for hopefully some final action to close SECRA. Lastly, this is one more step in the process that kind of gets the project toward shovel ready. When agencies are looking at funding projects, like we just went through the Water Infrastructure Act project for the pipe bridge, and we're successful there. This is another check in the box that says, well, they're very close to being ready to go, and we may see some funding in that case, especially when they're looking at competing projects. So it's the next step in the development of the raw water mains.
Any questions for Dick on this? As you can see in this memo to the Capital Projects Committee, this was prepared by our Environmental Council.
Yep.
The resolution was, so is there a motion declaring Mohawk Valley Water Authority to be lead agency for a coordinated review pursuant to SECRA in the form that is presented?
I'll make it.
1 and 2, thank you. Any further discussion regarding this? All those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Thank you. Next item is our quarterly investment statement ending September 30, 2017, and that's in the miscellaneous section of our packet.
Okay, everyone has, this is for the third quarter of the calendar year. And then last meeting we did the second quarter, so we're catching up. So public authorities laws required us to present to you a quarterly investment statement showing balances, investment earnings, any expenses related to those. Right now, the way we're looking, we budgeted a certain amount. We're anticipating we're going to probably exceed that by the end of the year. So we're looking good as far as investments. And you can see the expenses related to those. Some of the bigger expenses are because of the EFC issues. We have to pay a certain percentage based on the outstanding balance. So I think it's a 3-page report. So, any questions or comments?
We need a resolution approving this.
Yeah, we need to vote.
Second.
I'll do a second.
Any comments or questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Thank you. Committee reports, capital, we already did it. Anything else? Jim, do you have anything on the finance?
You have your November statement. We're actually up 6.4 million cubic feet for the year, which is very good compared to the prior year. So it's about 4%, which is, I think we've turned the corner finally. Water sales is actually up 3.2% compared to last year, so that's good. And cash flow is relatively good. December we made our retirement payment, $716,000, so that's actually down from a few years ago. So we'll have some insurance payments coming up in January, so the more cash we can get in, the better.
Any questions for Jim? Thank you. Pat?
Very quickly, I'll just mention that I'm sure most of you saw in the news last week the announcement coming from the governor's office on the awards through the Regional Economic Development Councils. The region received approximately $85 million as a top performer among the 10 regions across the state, which is great. The downside of that is that I did receive a letter the very next day via email stating that our application that we put in through the REDC consolidated funding process was turned down. We had submitted an application for phase 2 of our raw water pipeline construction. Dick and I assumed that it was because it wasn't 100% shovel ready because the state environmental quality review phase wasn't completed yet, which is what you just voted on now. So once we have the secret process completed and closed out on the pipeline, then we certainly intend to resubmit that for next year in the next round of the REDC funding. So we'll see how that goes, but I think you're aware that we did receive separately a $2.3 million grant from the state of New York out of a different pot of money they call the water infrastructure funding, and that was awarded for phase 1. So that we have to still close out that process and figure out what we need to do to get that money, but that'll go a long way towards launching us towards phase 2. So just wanted to mention that real quickly. I don't have a lot right now, and in the interest of time, because I think our executive session is going to have an awful lot of information, things we've certainly been discussing internally here, but we'll save that for executive session. So unless anybody has any questions for me, I'll be happy to take them, and if not, we can move on.
Any old business? Any new business? Yes,
I sent an email regarding the potential or possible future in the capital funds with anything having to do with the Tibbetts Road Tower that's been discussed in the past.
Dick?
I don't recall receiving that.
You know, you sent that to me and I forgot to send it to Dick.
Oh, I haven't seen it either. I was
Must have got caught on our firewall. Just kidding.
The Tibbetts Road tank is in our capital plan.
Actually, it's the Snowden Road tank. We'll replace that same elevation, and that we borrowed money for a few years ago, and that's going to be one of our next secret efforts, but it's probably 2 years out at this point for construction.
So I know I can speak from a first-hand perspective as to the lack of pressure in that particular area and having the developments there in Woodbury, that whole section.
Yeah,
And
as far as you can get.
very, very low water pressure. People
Yeah.
are boosting it up themselves,
Yeah.
whether it albeit legally or illegally. It's,
Well, it's actually legal now to put in a booster pump.
Is it?
So, yes,
Okay.
and we have standard designs that we've helped quite a few people with those.
doesn't help when a house is on fire and we hit the hydrant, we got 30 pounds of pressure on the line. We're waiting for tankers to come in January.
Yeah.
So from that perspective, I think it's an important issue.
What's the next tank on our list?
Very good. Thank you, sir.
Oh, last thing I will mention, it was brought up the last meeting, I think that we should have an update from Suez. They came on board August 1st, they'll be hitting the 6-month mark coming up, and we have to talk to them and tentatively have them arrange to come in for the February meeting, which will be, I think that's February 12th, we're doing that one early. So that'll be only another 6 or 7 weeks from now. But we tentatively have them scheduled to come in for the February meeting. I think that's pretty much set, right, Joe?
Yeah.
So they'll be in here to talk about our experience with them over, the first 6 or 7 months of the contract with the treatment plant.
Anything else? We need to go into executive session for cybersecurity update and employee matter. So I need a motion for that, please. Thank you, Frank, and Betty's second. Any discussion on that? All those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Thank you.